You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Heritage Radio Network is proud to be sponsored by Hearst Ranch. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable, native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. And George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, "I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world." Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com. I'm Lou Bank.
And I'm Arik Torrin of Lot One Brands.
And this is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps great ex-bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. So, Arik, yeah. It's funny, I actually used to know a guy named Torrin. Oh, man, he's gone too. Anyway, you and I were just having a phone conversation, and we started talking about the ominous presence of potential tariffs and what that
well said.
Yes, and what that might mean to your business. So okay, can you break it down like simple, basic? This is a podcast meant to help the Gringex bartenders understand agave spirits in rural Mexico. Yeah. So, for those bartenders and the beverage directors and the buyers at liquor stores who listen to the podcast, what does this mean to you as a guy who both owns brands and imports brands?
Let's hope it doesn't mean that it's going to put me out of business. That's the most important thing. So what we have to do upon this announcement, me and everyone else, I'm sure, is just analyze whatever we can and make educated or guesses against what we are, what facts are out there, which are very little, and our intuition.
Well, this did happen before, right? We had tariffs.
Not to Mexico. I didn't directly engage in it, but you're right, it did. And I did call up some people, particularly who did who were importing scotch, and there was, and how some of the mechanisms were present for those application of those tariffs. So what we had to do is, understand what we would know, which again, it's just, there will be tariffs of 25%. So that still has to go through the government process, with the first one being your inauguration of the next president on the 20th of January.
But assuming it does happen, assuming that there is a 25% tariff, which is what you kind of have to plan for, right?
Well, the variables are, yes or no tariff, right? The other way, the date that it would initiate, don't know that either. How much that tariff would be, the number was 25%, but that might activate as a very different number. And for how long that tariff would be in place for. Those are the variables. But yeah, your question is what?
In essence, worst case scenario. Well, I guess it's not worst case scenario, but the scenario I think that people who enjoy agave spirits from Mexico have to be prepared for is this 25% tariff actually hits. Now, I can't imagine that it hits the day that Donald Trump takes office. I don't think anything can happen that quickly, except apparently a ban from Muslim countries.
When you say hit, do you mean implemented from a government perspective, or how we feel it in the supply chain and the user end of the supply chain?
Well, I guess I mean
because
all of
there's a
that,
lag.
right? Right?
Right.
Like, and this is sort of the point that I'm getting to. Like, so if, and and don't hear this the wrong way, but a 25% tariff is put in place for anything exported or imported from Mexico, and that means one thing to a company the size of, let's say, Campari or Pernod Ricard or Diageo, right? And it means a completely different thing to a company your size, even though in essence you're talking the same tariff. In a way, does it position the larger guys in a better place than it positions you by putting you in a weaker spot? Small guys are always
Yeah.
in a weaker
Yeah,
spot.
Lou, I mean, that's the nature of everything. The people who have more in different parts of their storyline are always going to be better positioned to weather anything. So I'll break it down to you like this. We'll tap back into Campari or whomever, along the way. So one of the things that we could do is take anything that was made right now, and we've evaluated this and we decided not to do this, and bottle it and move it across the country pre-tariff, right? So one of the contributing factors as to why is that I don't need that inventory right now. So I have to store that inventory. And as a small company, the smallest type of company, we have to pay a per case per monthly fee for storage. So now giant companies are not, they're going to have, monthly warehouses that won't add a per case factor. You just bring more and you put it into your space, and that's
In
true for
essence,
medium-sized companies too. Like they'll have their space. So that's something that's really different for us.
yeah, they have that space whether it's full of booze or not.
Right, or partially full.
Yeah.
And then there is their run rate of whatever is in, right? So we have a run rate. We'll see how long it lasts. Certain SKUs will be in, need to be replenished than over others. And we'll have to make decisions upon the reality then.
And when you say run rate, you mean literally, okay, I know I've got enough inventory for on average 60 days, 90 days, whatever the number is before, like in terms of what you anticipate sales to be,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we import some very tiny brands where like with Parejo, it's going to be very normal for us to run out of SKUs in between imports anyway. So the way that the market will feel that, it won't be a hiccup, it'll just be just normal, especially if it comes in at the same price without a tariff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there are things that we consider like core items, either if it's, for our primary retail business like Mi Casa Blanco or Pelicanes, the rum, which is a very big part of our cocktail focus. And if you run out of stock on that, then everybody's going to look elsewhere, as you would. And
Right.
I would encourage them to do that, because they have to run their businesses as well.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think there's well, I mean, so you've got a brand side, right, where you own a brand, but then the other side is the importation side. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm, as a guy who's not involved in the business side of this at all,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I've got this wrong, but it feels to me like the importation side, because you're not distributing. You're literally just the person who brings the brand up from Mexico and then moves it into the distribution mechanism.
We're the
I,
guys who pay the tariffs.
right, exactly.
For the sake of this conversation, we're the
but
tariff payers.
but you're also, that's exactly right. But then you're also the guy who, it feels to me like, has a very slim margin on this stuff.
That's a question. So what we did a lot of soul searching, and we don't know what is going to come up of it. And we spoke to peers and friends, and spent a lot of time playing with, running through spreadsheets and modeling out different scenarios and speaking to our supplier partners, speaking to our distributor partners, and who's going to think of things and do what in what scenario. And roughly, again, it's not implemented, but where we decided and what brings us to the point where lot one is right now is that we're not going to move inventory ahead of it. We're going to lean into our current inventory, and hopefully that brings us to the point where when we do need to move um, more spirits across the border, either the tariff will be determined that it was never implemented, please, or that it will have gone through the cycle that it needed to go through for it to get it to the point where it's lifted. So that was our decision. So, and then that period of time that we have inventory at the old rate, that's is what it is. And every brand will have that period of time, either somewhere between 0 weeks or months to maybe a long time. Maybe people are bringing in right now, probably are, and loading up. So there'll be the way that is experienced through retail and through the retail client, like the restaurants and bars, is going to be pretty brand by brand, I would imagine.
Sure.
And then again, to finish that thought, if we're bringing the next shipment in under a full tariff, or whatever tariff that is, it's most likely we're going to just raise the price on it. Back to your question about margins,
right?
Because again, we sold certain, and it's like, I mean, on a business level, I would want to absorb that. On one hand, absorb that that loss, but then it's like, why is that my duty within the supply chain? Is it going to be we ethically speaking, or we are not, whether ethically or not, where our model is, we do not want to ask the producers to lower their margin.
Right.
Because we want them to get earned for what they do. And then no one's going to listen to me on the distribution side or on the retail side and say, hey, you guys should lower your margins. They'll all say, we'll just sell something else.
But this is sort of my point, right? It forces a marketing decision, whether you look at it as a marketing decision or not. It forces a marketing decision.
I do.
And if you've got this large corporation that's able to bring in enough stock that they can hold prices for a longer period of time than you can, suddenly you're raising your price, but this stuff is like now in essence less expensive. Because they didn't have to raise the price. It really puts
a very foreseeable scenario.
Yes, well, that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I think in essence the message that I want to send out to the Kringex bartenders is, if there's a small brand that you really love, and I'm not saying, don't support the big brands. What I am saying is, if there's a small brand that you love, understand they're about to potentially, most likely, hit this new tope in the road, hit this new struggle point, right? That they have to contend with. And I also recognize that the restaurants and the bars are working on slim margins as well, especially the restaurants. So I'm not suggesting that the onus should all be on you at all. But what I am saying is, and I don't know how you do this math, but when you're looking at, okay, how are we as a bar or a restaurant going to contend with the impact of the tariffs? Maybe think about these larger brands that will be able to weather it longer by putting in more investment up front. Recognize that that's going to be the case, and those prices will hold for the things that you're probably already using for the vast majority of your cocktails. And then think about these small brands that you want to support and who you want to make sure make it through this hard time. And maybe that's where you start investing some of that money that you feel like normally you'd buy a bottle, or maybe you'd buy a case, and instead you buy 2 bottles or you buy 2 cases. That's what I'm suggesting.
Well, thank you, Lou. I mean, And bringing attention to this to your listeners is invaluable. And I think you put it really well. We are approaching a tope in the road, and for those of your listeners, probably mostly know that means speed bump. And it's unclear because it's the road ahead of us between now and that tope is not straight and flat. It's a bit windy. So we don't see what that tope is, and we don't know when it's approaching exactly. But it is going to be something. Decisions are being made. We're making decisions now, and decisions will be made between now and the next decision point. And that's going to, trickle down. It's going to hit everybody along the way. Our biggest hope is that, the biggest spirits and beverage alcohol is not the number one export from Mexico to the United States. So it's like I'm hoping that the big players in the automotive industry will be able to head this, do what they can do, and all the industries combined. Of course,
Sure.
Alcohol is big, and of course, produce is huge. So if all of us combined have an influence, and I would think that the preferences are aligned, if all that weighs in, and hopefully this won't happen. But if it does, and we're raising our prices and it affects you, I hope you don't look at us negatively. And I hope that, if your support has to go away for a period of time, then it's temporary, and then it could come back when things could adjust back,
Right on. Okay, well, I think unless you got something else to add, Arik, I think that's kind of the note I want to wrap on.
That's perfect. Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on to talk about this. It seems like something that, we should all be talking about and thinking about.
Right on. And then you and I need to have another conversation about non-agave spirits in Mexico soon. Deal?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right on. Okay, thanks, Arik. I will catch you next episode.
Thank you, Lou. Take care.
You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like. Tell your friends. And please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly. Drive responsibly. Eat responsibly too. And listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive. Do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stressing capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.